right now. Somewhere in America, an ordinary-looking coin could be sitting silently inside an old jar, buried at the bottom of a drawer, hidden inside a forgotten collection, or mixed in with coins that nobody has examined in years. And the shocking part is this: to an untrained eye, it may look completely ordinary. But to the right collector, the right variety, condition, and verified rarity can transform a small piece of metal into something people chase like hidden treasure. Welcome back to American Coin Secrets, where we bring you fresh updates every day and take you deep inside the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden varieties, mysterious mint marks, collector demand, and coins that have captured serious attention across the collecting community. Today, we are counting down 3 extraordinary coins, and I promise you this countdown gets more intense with every single coin. These are the kinds of pieces that can make collectors stop, look twice, and ask one dangerous question: could something like this be hiding in my own collection? Do not skip ahead, because every coin in today's video has a story, a history, and details that make the search absolutely thrilling. One of these coins carries a combination of age, condition, collector interest, and scarcity that can turn an overlooked discovery into a truly astonishing treasure. So take a deep breath, look closely at every coin you own, and stay with me until the very end. Because today on American Coin Secrets, we are opening the vault on 3 rare coins that prove one thing beyond doubt. Sometimes the greatest treasure is the one everyone else already looked at and failed to recognize. And now, let the countdown begin. First up, at number 1, we travel to Germany and focus our attention on a tiny denomination that many people might never expect to become the center of an intense collector conversation: the Germany 5 Pfennig, dated 1978, with the F mint mark, described here in fine condition. This is exactly the kind of coin that makes the rare coin world so exciting. Its face value was incredibly small. It was created for everyday commerce. It could pass from hand to hand, disappear into pockets, fall behind furniture, sit inside old purses, or remain forgotten for decades inside a tin box. But years later, coins from ordinary circulation can become fascinating objects of study when collectors begin examining their date, mint mark, preservation, varieties, provenance, and availability in the marketplace. And that is where the real hunt begins. The 5 Pfennig denomination was part of the post-war monetary system of West Germany before the introduction of the euro. For generations, these small coins circulated alongside other Deutsche Mark denominations and became a familiar part of everyday life. Millions of people handled them without giving them a second thought. They were used in shops, carried in wallets, dropped into cash registers, and eventually set aside when Germany transitioned to the euro. But the passage of time changes the story. Once a circulating denomination disappears from daily use, the surviving pieces begin a completely different journey. No longer just money, they become historical objects. Collectors begin separating dates, mint marks, varieties, and conditions. A coin that once blended into a pile of change can suddenly become part of a much deeper investigation. The F mint mark identifies production associated with Stuttgart. Germany used mint marks to identify the mint responsible for producing a particular coin, and for collectors, that tiny letter can become one of the first details worth examining. A date alone is not always enough. The mint mark can matter. The condition can matter. The exact characteristics of the coin can matter. And when unusual circumstances, verified varieties, exceptional preservation, or strong collector demand enter the picture, attention can rise dramatically. Now imagine opening an old collection and seeing a 1978 German 5 Pfennig staring back at you. Most people might see nothing more than a tiny, outdated coin. A collector sees questions. Where was it minted? How well has it survived? Does it match a recognized variety? Are there unusual characteristics? Has it been authenticated? Has it been professionally graded? And most importantly, does it possess the exact combination of characteristics that serious collectors are searching for? That is the difference between simply owning a coin and truly understanding one. The standard design of the West German 5 Pfennig is instantly recognizable to many collectors. The denomination belongs to an era when German coinage carried strong national symbolism and practical design. The coin is a small metallic witness to post-war German history, economic reconstruction, and decades of everyday European life. Its composition is an important part of its identity. The regular 5 Pfennig coins of this era were struck in steel with a copper-clad appearance, giving the coin its familiar reddish-brown tone. That composition makes the piece visually distinctive and also reminds collectors that coinage is not just about the denomination printed on the surface. The metal, weight, dimensions, edge, and striking characteristics can all become important when examining authenticity and possible varieties. And this is where you need to slow down. Do not simply look at the date and stop. Examine the coin under strong lighting. Look at the mint mark. Study the surfaces. Check for unusual doubling, striking anomalies, planchet characteristics, edge irregularities, and differences that separate one example from another. Compare it with reliable reference material, and when a coin appears genuinely unusual, consider professional authentication. Because in the world of rare coins, the smallest detail can lead to the biggest discovery. A collector should never assume that every 1978 5 Pfennig automatically carries an extraordinary premium. The rare coin market depends heavily on the exact coin, its authenticity, its specific variety or error status, its condition, certification, and documented sale evidence. But that uncertainty is exactly what makes the search so addictive. You may be holding a normal example, or you may be holding something that deserves a much closer investigation. And that possibility is enough to make every serious collector look again. Condition is another critical chapter in this story. Your coin is described as being in fine condition, meaning it has visible circulation and wear, but still retains enough of its major design details to be identifiable and collectible. Fine condition coins carry the history of circulation directly on their surfaces. Every softened detail and every mark can represent decades of movement through the real world. For collectors, however, condition can dramatically influence value. Two coins with the same date and mint mark can command entirely different levels of interest, depending on preservation. A coin that appears similar at first glance may differ in surface quality, corrosion, cleaning, damage, original appearance, or strike quality. This is why serious collectors inspect rather than assume. The Germany 5 Pfennig 1978 SS becomes especially interesting when viewed through the lens of the modern collector market. The coin itself is connected to a major historical period, but the true excitement comes from the possibility of specialized varieties, unusual examples, certification, and collector competition. Rare coins are not valued merely because they are old. They become valuable because collectors want something that is difficult to obtain in a specific form. That form could involve an unusual minting error, a recognized variety, an exceptional preservation level, a rare combination of characteristics, a historically important provenance, or a documented example that attracts aggressive competition when it appears at auction. That is why coin collecting can feel like a treasure hunt with no final map. You never know when a detail will change the entire story. Now let's talk about the value you provided for this specific featured coin. For the Germany 5 Pfennig 1978 AF in the fine condition described, the stated current market value is $65,000. Yes, $65,000 for the featured rare example described in this video. That is the kind of number that immediately changes the way people look at a tiny coin. Something that once represented only a fraction of a Deutsche Mark can, under the right documented and verified circumstances, enter a completely different world of collector attention. Think about that for a moment. A tiny piece of metal, a coin that could have been ignored for decades, a historical object small enough to rest in the palm of your hand. And yet, in the extraordinary rare coin scenario featured here, it carries a stated value of $65,000. That is not just pocket change. That is the kind of discovery that makes collectors' hearts race. But remember, the stated figure applies only to the specific rare coin scenario and condition described. Coin values are not guaranteed and can change depending on authentication, exact variety, condition, certification, collector demand, and real-world market activity. Before buying, selling, or assuming a high value, always compare reliable auction records and seek expert authentication. And here is the most exciting part. Collector interest can change over time. The market for historically interesting coins continues to evolve as new collectors enter the hobby. Old collections are rediscovered and specialized varieties receive more attention. A coin sitting unnoticed today may become tomorrow's subject of intense discussion, especially if collectors discover that a particular variety or unusual feature is significantly harder to locate than previously believed. That is why patience matters, knowledge matters, and careful examination matters. Do not rush to clean an old coin. Cleaning can damage surfaces and reduce collector appeal. Handle valuable-looking coins carefully, preferably by their edges. Store them in appropriate coin holders and avoid materials that can cause chemical damage. Most importantly, if you believe you have found an unusual variety or significant error, document the coin with clear photographs before making any major decisions. The Germany 5 Pfennig 1978 reminds us that the world of collecting is filled with surprises. Sometimes, the greatest excitement does not begin with a giant gold coin or an ancient treasure chest. Sometimes, it begins with a tiny denomination that everyone else has already dismissed. So if you have old German coins stored away, do not rush past them. Check the dates. Check the mint marks. Check the condition. Look for unusual characteristics. Compare carefully. And if something does not look right, or perhaps looks too interesting to ignore, take a closer look. Because somewhere in an old collection, a forgotten envelope, a family box, or a jar that has not been opened in decades, there may still be a coin waiting for someone to recognize what makes it special. And as incredible as this first discovery is, do not go anywhere, because the next coin in our countdown takes the suspense even further. On American Coin Secrets, we bring you fresh updates every day, exploring the hidden stories, collector mysteries, and fascinating discoveries that make the world of coins impossible to ignore. The treasure hunt has only just begun. Next up, now the countdown becomes even more intense. At number 2, we are stepping into the fascinating world of modern German coinage with the Germany 10 Pfennig dated 1993 and carrying the A mint mark, described in fine condition. At first glance, this may look like just another small coin from the final years of the Deutsche Mark era. But in the world of coin collecting, appearances can be dangerously deceptive. Because the question is never simply, what is this coin? The real question is there something about this particular example that everyone else has missed? And that is where the excitement begins. The 10 Pfennig denomination was once a familiar part of everyday life in Germany. It moved through shops, markets, wallets, purses, cash registers, and countless hands. Millions of people used these coins without imagining that decades later, collectors would be carefully examining surviving examples under magnification, searching for unusual characteristics, rare varieties, exceptional preservation, and historical details. But time changes everything. Once the Deutsche Mark disappeared from everyday circulation and the euro became Germany's currency, coins like the 1993 A10 Pfennig stopped being ordinary spending money. They became reminders of an important chapter in German monetary history. And today, every surviving coin has its own story. Some are heavily worn. Some were saved by families. Some disappeared into forgotten collections. Some were stored away in old boxes and drawers. And some may contain characteristics that only a trained collector would immediately recognize. The A mint mark is one of the first details that demands attention. This tiny letter identifies the Berlin Mint, one of Germany's historic minting facilities. To the average person, a single letter may seem insignificant. But collectors understand that a mint mark can be the beginning of a much deeper investigation. The date tells you when the coin was made. The mint mark tells you where it was struck. The surfaces tell you how it survived. And unusual characteristics may reveal whether you are looking at something far more interesting than an ordinary circulation piece. That is why experienced collectors never stop at the first glance. The standard Germany 10 Pfennig of this period carries a design deeply connected with the visual identity of the Deutsche Mark era. These coins were practical, durable, and created for everyday use, but today they have become small historical artifacts representing the final years of a major European currency system. The composition is also an important part of the story. The 10 Pfennig coins of this era were produced from copper-clad steel, giving them a distinctive appearance while allowing them to function effectively in everyday circulation. Their metallic structure, weight, edge, and overall physical characteristics are all details collectors can use when examining whether a coin matches expected specifications. And this is where the investigation becomes exciting. Take a 1993 A10 Pfennig and place it under proper lighting. Look carefully at the surfaces. Study every letter. Examine the date. Inspect the mint mark. Check for unusual doubling. Look for irregularities in the strike. Compare the edge with known examples. Watch for signs that the coin may have been struck on an incorrect planchet or may display another significant minting anomaly. A true collector knows that the smallest difference can sometimes create the biggest question. Of course, not every unusual-looking mark is a valuable error. Damage after the coin left the mint, corrosion, scratches, and alterations can all create misleading appearances. That is why professional authentication becomes so important when a coin seems genuinely unusual. But imagine the moment when you realize that the coin in your hand deserves a second opinion. Imagine discovering that what looked like an ordinary 10 Pfennig piece may have a characteristic that separates it from thousands or millions of standard examples. That moment is the heartbeat of coin collecting. The Germany 10 Pfennig 1993A represents more than a small denomination from the past. It represents possibility. A possibility hidden in details. A possibility hidden in preservation. A possibility hidden in rarity. And sometimes a possibility hidden for decades before anyone finally recognizes it. Your featured coin is described as being in fine condition, and that gives the story another important dimension. Fine condition generally means the coin has experienced circulation and visible wear, but its main design and identifying details remain clear enough for recognition and study. Every mark can be part of its journey. Every softened feature can be evidence of circulation. This coin may have traveled through countless transactions before being saved and eventually rediscovered. And yet, collector demand is not always based solely on whether a coin looks brand new. The exact rarity, variety, historical significance, and authentication can matter enormously. In some cases, the story behind the coin and the exact characteristics that distinguish it can become just as important as the visible condition. This is why the rare coin market can be so thrilling. Two coins may appear almost identical. Same country, same denomination, same year. Yet one tiny difference can send collectors into a completely different category of investigation. The 1993A mint mark is therefore not something to ignore. It is something to study carefully as part of the coin's complete identity. And when serious collectors begin searching for difficult varieties, unusual minting characteristics, or documented examples, demand can become extremely competitive. That is when a small coin stops being just a coin. It becomes a target. It becomes a collector challenge. It becomes the kind of discovery that people hope to uncover in an old collection. And now comes the moment that makes this story even more dramatic. For the specific Germany 10 Pfennig 1993A rare coin scenario described here, in fine condition, the stated current market value provided for this video is $55,000. Yes, $55,000. A tiny coin from the Deutsche Mark era. A coin that could easily be overlooked. A coin small enough to disappear among ordinary old change. And yet, under the exact rare and collectible circumstances described for this featured example, it is presented with a value of $55,000. That is the kind of number that can make you look at every old coin in your collection with completely new eyes. Because the greatest collector discoveries often begin with something simple. One coin, one date, one mint mark, one unusual detail, and one person curious enough to look closer. That is why you should never rush through an old coin collection. Take your time. Inspect each piece carefully. Do not clean coins aggressively, because improper cleaning can permanently damage their surfaces and reduce collector appeal. Handle potentially valuable pieces by the edges, store them in appropriate holders, and photograph anything unusual before seeking an expert opinion. The most important advice for collectors is this: learn before you sell and verify before you celebrate. A large claimed value should always be supported by the exact variety, authentication, condition, and credible market evidence. Coin prices can change with collector demand and auction activity, so serious collectors should compare recent documented sales and professional evaluations. But that does not make the search any less exciting. In fact, it makes it more exciting, because every collection is a mystery waiting to be opened. Every old coin can lead to another question, and every question can lead deeper into the hunt. The Germany 10 Pfennig 1993 reminds us that the rare coin world is not simply about owning old metal. It is about understanding what you have before everyone else recognizes its significance. A coin can sit unnoticed for years. A collection can remain untouched for decades. A forgotten envelope can hold pieces that have not been examined since the day they were put away. And somewhere, perhaps right now, another collector is looking through old German coins and wondering whether one small piece of history deserves a closer inspection. That is why the hunt never truly ends. The next great discovery may not come from a museum. It may not come from a famous auction. It may come from a coin that has been sitting quietly, waiting for the right person to notice the details. So check your old German coins. Look at the dates. Look at the mint marks. Study the condition. Compare unusual examples carefully. And never underestimate a coin simply because it once had a small face value. Because sometimes the smallest object can carry the biggest mystery. And on American Coin Secrets, we continue bringing you fresh updates every day, uncovering fascinating coin stories, collector mysteries, hidden varieties, and the incredible possibilities waiting inside the world of numismatics. But stay with me, because we are not finished yet. The final coin in this top 3 countdown is still waiting in the shadows, and its story could be the one that makes you inspect every single old coin you own all over again. Next up. And now, we have reached the final coin. If you have stayed with me from the beginning, then you already know that this countdown has taken us deep into the fascinating world of German coinage. But the final entry carries a different kind of excitement. A coin from an earlier generation, a small piece of the Deutsche Mark era that may look ordinary at first glance but carries decades of history behind its worn surface. This is the Germany 10 Pfennig dated 1969 with the D mint mark, described in fine condition. And before we reveal the dramatic value attached to the rare featured example in this story, we need to understand why collectors never judge a coin by its face value alone. Because sometimes the most dangerous words in coin collecting are, "It's probably nothing." The 1969D Germany 10 Pfennig comes from a period when the Deutsche Mark was firmly established as one of Europe's major currencies. These coins were created for everyday use. They passed through stores, markets, railway stations, cafes, homes, and countless transactions. Nobody carrying one in 1969 could know whether that small piece of metal would survive for decades and eventually become part of a collector's search. That is what makes old coins so fascinating. They are not just metal. They are survivors. Every surviving coin has traveled through time. And the longer it survives, the more important one question becomes. What exactly makes this particular example different from the rest? The D mint mark points to Munich, one of Germany's historic minting centers. That single letter may be tiny, but to a serious collector, it is an essential part of the coin's identity. A date tells part of the story. A mint mark adds another chapter. The physical characteristics, condition, strike, surface preservation, and any unusual features can take the investigation even further. And that is where the real treasure hunt begins. When examining a Germany 10 Pfennig 1969D, do not simply glance at the date and move on. Look closely. Study the mint mark under magnification. Inspect the lettering and numerals. Examine the surfaces for unusual characteristics. Compare the coin's weight, diameter, edge, and overall appearance with reliable references for the standard issue. Look for features that genuinely deserve investigation. Could there be unusual doubling? Could there be an important die characteristic? Could the coin have been struck on an unusual planchet? Could there be a documented minting error? Or is there another feature that separates it from the standard examples that circulated by the millions? These are the questions that transform casual coin ownership into serious collecting. The 10 Pfennig denomination itself carries a fascinating connection to Germany's post-war monetary history. During the Deutsche Mark era, these small coins were familiar objects of daily life. They were never designed to sit behind museum glass. They were designed to be used. And that is exactly why surviving pieces can be so interesting today. Circulation changes a coin. Time changes a coin. History changes the way collectors look at a coin. What was once ordinary currency can become a historical artifact representing an entire era. The standard composition and physical structure of these coins are also essential for collectors to understand. Knowing what a genuine, normal example should look and feel like is often the first step toward identifying something unusual. A serious search begins with knowledge of the ordinary, because you cannot recognize the extraordinary until you know what the standard version is supposed to be. And when an old coin does not match expectations, that is when the excitement starts. Your featured coin is described as being in fine condition, meaning it shows evidence of real circulation while retaining recognizable major design elements. There is something almost dramatic about a circulated coin from 1969. The wear on its surface is evidence that this piece did not spend its entire life protected inside a collector's holder. It lived in the real world. It passed through hands. It traveled through time. And somehow it survived long enough to reach the modern collector era. But condition alone is not the entire story. In rare coin collecting, a dramatic value can depend on a highly specific combination of factors. Authentication is critical. The exact variety is critical. A genuine minting error can be critical. Provenance can matter. Professional grading can matter. And collector competition can sometimes transform the demand for a documented rarity into an intense battle. That is why two coins that appear almost identical can have completely different stories. One may be an ordinary example. The other may contain a characteristic that changes everything. Imagine searching through an old collection and discovering a small 1969 D10 Pfennig coin. At first, you think it is simply an old German coin. Then you notice something unusual. You examine it again. You compare it. You photograph it. You ask an experienced collector for an opinion. And suddenly, what began as a casual discovery turns into an investigation. That is the emotional power of coin collecting. The possibility that history may have hidden something in plain sight. And now we reach the point that takes this featured story to another level. For the specific rare Germany and Pfennig 1969D example described in this video, in the stated fine condition, the current market value provided for this featured coin is $88,000. Yes, $88,000. A small coin. A denomination once used in ordinary daily transactions. A piece of metal that could fit easily into the palm of your hand. Yet if the exact rare characteristics and documentation supporting this featured example are present, the stated value turns this coin into something far beyond ordinary pocket change. It becomes a collector treasure, a hidden piece of history. The kind of discovery that can make an entire collection suddenly feel like unexplored territory. But here is the truth every serious collector must remember. A high value applies to the exact rare authenticated coin being described, not automatically to every 1969 D10 Pfennig. Authentication, exact variety or error, condition, certification, and documented market evidence are what separate an extraordinary rarity from an ordinary circulated example. And that is not bad news. That is the reason to look more carefully. Because the hunt is not about assuming every old coin is a fortune. The hunt is about discovering the one that is different. The one with the unusual detail. The one that has survived in an exceptional form. The one that matches a recognized rarity. The one that everyone else overlooked. If you have old German coins, take your time with them. Never aggressively clean a coin you believe may be collectible. Improper cleaning can permanently damage the original surfaces and reduce collector interest. Handle coins carefully by the edges, store them safely, and take clear photographs of anything that appears unusual. Then compare. Research. Verify. And if the evidence points toward a genuine rarity, seek professional authentication. Because one small detail can sometimes be the beginning of an incredible story. And that brings us to the end of today's countdown. 3 German coins. 3 journeys through history. 3 reminders that the rare coin world is filled with mysteries that cannot always be recognized at first glance. From the 1978 Ert R5 Pfennig to the 1993 E10 Pfennig, and finally to this remarkable featured 1969 D10 Pfennig, every coin tells us the same thing. Never underestimate what history has left behind. Some coins are easy to identify. Some require knowledge. Some require patience. And some may sit unnoticed for years, waiting for the one person willing to look closer. So before you leave, take one more look at your old jars, inherited collections, drawers, boxes, and forgotten coin folders. Check the dates. Check the mint marks. Study the details. Because the next great discovery will not announce itself. It will simply be there, waiting. And if you love discovering the hidden stories behind rare coins, unusual varieties, historic pieces, and collector mysteries, make sure you stay connected with American Coin Secrets. Our channel brings you fresh updates every day, taking you deeper into the world of coins and the incredible stories hidden inside them. Remember, the smallest coin can hold the biggest mystery. And sometimes, the treasure you have been searching for has been sitting quietly in front of you all along. This is American Coin Secrets, where every coin has a story, every detail matters, and the next hidden treasure could be closer than you think.